Faulkner.
Yeah,
Now we've got Frank Carini back.
Now you got to get the A game now.
Yeah, A game back in the house.
The bench is back home.
Well, thanks for coming back in on this hot, hot summer day.
Yeah, it's actually. I hate the heat. Actually, I think it's very nice out.
It is. It's not bad. I'll take it. I'll take it. We're here in the studio. We got the AC cranking.
It's like
Probably shouldn't tell the environmental guy this.
I use it occasionally to sleep.
Look, I'm not a purist. Let's talk about something that we talked a little bit about. I believe I was with you. I mean, I get a rotating cast of characters.
I'm confused. Oh my God, I've been insulted.
Now, when we were talking about just taking a look at hurricanes and looking at Houston, looking at Irma, we're now keeping an eye on Jose,
Yeah.
but just the program that we're looking at in Cranston, which EcoRI pointed out, there was a program in Warwick in the 80s to address homes in floodplain areas. Nuts and bolts of this, I mean, we know how much insurance is for it, we know how much it costs cities to actually address it, and from the federal level as well. But what do they do? Do they go to these homeowners and say, we'll give you X number of cents on the dollar, but we need you out?
Yeah, well, they pretty much give them fair market value, and when at least Cranston was, and most of them work this way. We're not going to take in the fact that it's in a flood zone, so we're not going to decrease your home property by X number of dollars that maybe you would have. They kind of go by the not the blue book because that's a vehicle, but the fair market value for the home. And some of the programs are supported by the federal government, so it's not as if it's all state, coming from a state or municipality, but I think it has to be done. It's important to get, you're not going to be able to protect other places if you have all these, especially a home that keeps getting flooded. I mean, the people probably don't want to live there either, and they couldn't sell it if they put it on the market.
True.
So, I mean, and maybe it didn't flood when they first bought the house 30 years ago, things changed.
That was my question. I mean, is it just a different world in which we live? As you said, 30, 50 years ago when these houses were built, were the flooding levels just not the same?
They might have been lower. I mean, there's more building in that particular area. It all depends. Some of them might have always been flooded and the people got scammed or whatever, but there's different building patterns, land use issues, there's more people, there's more asphalt, there's more impervious surface, so you have to take that into account. So some homes are going to take a beating, or some buildings or some areas we have to let nature come back a little bit to protect people's properties, other people's properties, or people that, now these people can move and live somewhere where they're not going to get flooded when it's a heavy rain or something.
Now, they can't possibly take all of these houses off the
roll,
so to speak.
They pick the ones that flooded the most in the biggest floodplain. They go for the ones that are the biggest problem, if you will.
Now, we clearly aren't the only ones doing this. There's got to be programs around the country that do similar things for areas such as this. Or are we ahead of the curve?
I can't speak. I mean, for Southern New England, Connecticut does it, Mass has done it, and Rhode Island's done it. We haven't really looked into other places on the coast. I'm sure California, being more progressive than we are, probably does it, or Oregon or Washington might do it, but I don't know. I mean, maybe down in Texas, but I don't know. I don't know. I can't speak for Texas.
Well, speaking for Texas, and I know we can't speak to it, but we have actually talked about this a little bit. As they look to rebuild down there, knowing full well what's in floodplain areas, will they take the prudent approach, knowing what had happened this past year? Or, we've talked about this before, money talks, developers see opportunities. If there was development on land, will the city step in and say, not there?
I would hope so. I don't know, though. I mean, they were built. Look what we've done in New Orleans. I mean, they've been rebuilt, but even when originally, ripping down all the mangrove forests and all the cypress trees and everything so the water comes. I don't know. I don't trust, politics and money. I mean, I think they're going to make changes, certainly. Do I think they're going to be all the changes we need? I mean, I don't know enough about it. I've only been to Texas once in Austin, so I really can't speak for politics or what goes on down there, but I mean, we seem to be making the same mistakes all over the country, so hopefully we make far less this time, but we may learn lessons from Katrina. Unfortunately, it took such loss of life and loss of property to do so, but they've made some changes, so maybe Houston will too, and some other hard-hit areas down there in the Gulf Coast.
Well, we're keeping an eye on Jose, local meteorologist John Guerres. He provided an update. He just said keep an eye. Right now it goes from tropical to Category 1. He said it's definitely not an Irma, definitely not hyping it up, but just saying there it is out in the Atlantic. I mean, we're in the throes of hurricane season up here, so keep an eye on that. We'll see what happens with Jose, so stay tuned for Go Local for updates on that moving forward. So speaking of the role of government in sort of everyday life, one of the articles this week on EcoRI was you guys are looking to get some info from the state as to where exactly they're using chemicals and spraying pesticides.
Yeah, and it was, I didn't think it would be easy. I didn't think we'd have, unfortunately, don't have it documented, this is where it is. Nobody really knows, and that's kind of the disheartening problem, and nobody knows. First of all, I didn't expect them to be jumping through hoops to get me the information. I understand, and it's probably takes some digging too, so I understand that, but the reactions I got weren't very, yeah, they look at it, or we look at it, put in a records request, which I have done. I haven't heard anything in a week from my 2 record requests, or even an email saying, I'd like to speak to somebody at DEM about this, and I'm not here to, the story, behind the story isn't, oh my God, we're spraying chemical. Well, that's part of the problem, but I mean, we're not keeping track of all these things that are designed, chemicals designed to kill things, and we have no idea where we're haphazardly spraying them, where they're going, and we should know. Taxpayers are buying the stuff, and they're spraying it on taxpayer paid for lands. And nobody can know, and nobody really can make the effort. So I'm going to have to keep bugging them, but basically right now nobody knows.
Well, hopefully, as you said, if you just file it, if it hasn't reached the 10-day mark, that's sort of the magic number before
Right.
they have to then ask for an extension. Are there any regulations in place anywhere, locally, federally, about the level of chemicals, what's used, what's a, Roundup ready?
Well, there's nothing, yeah, there is regulations for what you can spray and when and where, but I mean, they're so convoluted. I went through them just for Rhode Island. They're so convoluted, and DEM said that their Department of Agriculture randomly checks people, but I don't know how often that means. We don't enforce the recycling law, and this is way more important than the recycling law, but I mean, we don't really enforce much, so I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find the records. Who are we looking at? How often are we looking at things? But yeah, there are some rules. Some pesticides or herbicides you can't use, and there's ways to use them. But if you've seen your neighbor or anybody, people buy this stuff over the counter, there's recommended usage. Nobody pays. We're just spraying it all around and whatever. No gloves, no safety. It's going everywhere. I get Phragmites can wreck somebody's view, and poison ivy's a pain, and other invasives can be a problem. But you know what? What's worse, those things,
Yes.
or just spraying a bunch of chemicals around everywhere and anywhere? And we have no idea the accumulative effect, how they interact with each other, what happens when they hit with sunlight, and we haven't done any studies because it's so complicated. Nobody's going to do a study. It's like with lead. We knew lead was bad. We let it go. Asbestos, DDT.
Well,
Going down
I'm
this path.
super curious to see if or what you get back from your
I'm
request
interested
here.
to see. I mean, they got back to me, all the agencies, and nobody, was a jerk or anything, but it's just like nobody knows, and nobody wants to say, I don't know. Or, like if I call up and ask, hey, how many acres of land are we protected in Rhode Island? I can get that in a second. How much local economy is supported by tourism, fishing, and hunting, and all that? They can give me that number in a second, and I understand that. But it seems like these agencies are more of a part of the political machine that is whoever's in the governor's office, and I don't even mean the current one. It's just going back decades, or the General Assembly. It's just, whatever. I know everything. There's problems. I think we should be keeping a better eye on them. It's just that simple. It doesn't mean anybody's a bad guy, there's some villain or something. Let's keep track of how much poisons we're spraying around.
Okay. Hopefully we'll get some answers when we talk next week, next Friday.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or we'll be talking about looking for answers next Friday. And
Yeah,
hopefully,
next
hopefully
week I'm going to start, asking for follow-up emails and calls and stuff, so we'll see.
So let's go down the list here. Climate change. Let's talk what the governor signed today. The governor's stance on climate change and sort of Rhode Island's going to.
Oh, what she signed? I've been out and about all day. I haven't really been at my computer.
I'll
What
send
did
it
she
to you.
sign?
We'll talk about it next week. I'll send it.
Well, you
along.
can tell me. I'll be able to I'm sure it's nothing that can't.
I will pull it up, but what I want to ask you in the meantime, the Prep 21 event that's coming up that you guys had mentioned, which is the impacts of climate change on September 25th.
Yeah.
Should folks go to EcoRI to learn more about it? Should they go to this? I mean, who's it really for?
It's for the general public. It's also, general public's invited, and they certainly can go, but it's more for planners and municipal officials, state officials and stuff. If you have the time, I would go. I think it's going to be, one of us is going, Tim or I, or something. We're not sure yet. But I think, it's important. And I think we do have a lot of good, like I've always said, CRMC, URI, even RISD. There's plenty of people that are doing good work here about climate change and sea level rise and all that. So yes, I think it's worth going to if you have the time. But we'll be covering it.
And
I'm
so
sure
you can read about it
it'll
on
be
EcoRI.
right.
If you can't go,
make it.
Tim or Frank will be there giving you the recap.
Yep.
It's going to take place at DEM in Providence, yes?
Correct.
Okay.
And I don't remember what room, but it's on our story.
Check it out, ecori.org. They count on readers like you to read, financially support. No trash bash success. Give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, Joanna handles that part of it more. So I think we made more money than we ever have there, and it was fun. We had 4 bands, Some people said they were kind of loud. We try to, I don't have anything to do with the event, so that's why it's, first of all, a success. But we have, we try to change the venue every year, and we try to have different things. This year we had 4 bands. They were all really good bands. They weren't, you know, Metallica loud, but they were loud, and it's because that's what they do, and they were good. But some people, you know, couldn't hear people talk and stuff. But whatever, everybody liked it. It was fun. And
Good times had, and no trash was made.
no trash was made, and the compost we brought home, I'm composting in our backyard pile. There wasn't that much. It basically was just compostable plates that I had to tear up, and that's fine. I needed some brown, needed some carbon for my pile anyway. So.
Fantastic. Well, Frank, I appreciate your coming in, giving us the skinny, the lowdown.
Of course.
Next week, we're probably going to be still talking about pesticides,
Yep.
where they are, or if we've not found out where they are.
Well, I'm sure we won't find out where they are, but maybe we've made a little progress.
Okay, we'll keep tabs, and we'll see what else is on EcoRI.org. As always, appreciate your coming in to
No,
talk
thank
about
you.
the stories.